Before we start, don't just listen, observe. Because in asylums like these, patients don't disappear. They're rewritten. This is dark, real horror. Tonight, 7 true asylum horror stories. Some were hidden, some were silenced, and one still speaks. Watch till the end. Because the last story, it's the one they tried to bury. But it surfaced anyway. If something in here reminds you of yourself, leave a comment and subscribe before they change your name to Day 22. In the white room, the same white ceiling, the same white walls, the same white uniformed nurse with her clipboard and tight smile, asking the same questions. How are you feeling today, Abigail? My name isn't Abigail. I checked myself into Blackwood Psychiatric Center in Lancaster, Pennsylvania 3 weeks ago. Voluntary 72-hour observation after a panic attack at work sent me to the ER. Just a precaution, they said, something to help my insurance cover the therapy I desperately needed. No one mentioned I wouldn't be leaving. The nurse, Diane, according to her name tag, marks something on her clipboard when I don't respond. Her pen makes a scratching sound that reminds me of fingernails on drywall. I've heard that sound at night, coming from inside the walls of my room. Dr. Mercer will see you this afternoon, she says. Voice practiced and smooth, like river stones. He's adjusting your medication again. My medication. Pills I don't recognize. White ones that make the edges of the room blur. Blue ones that steal hours from my day. Yesterday, I hid them under my tongue and spat them into the toilet when no one was looking. That's when the clarity started returning. That's when I realized how wrong everything was. I need to make a phone call. I tell Diane, my boss will be looking for me. The same request I've made every day for 3 weeks. Your resignation letter was quite thorough, Abigail. Diane's smile doesn't reach her eyes. Neurosync has already filled your position. I never worked at a company called Neurosync. My phone disappeared the second day, along with my clothes, my ID, and apparently my name. The common room hums with subdued activity. A television mounted behind thick plexiglass plays a game show from what must be 2010. 2 elderly patients play checkers with pieces that can't be swallowed or sharpened. A young man rocks in the corner, mouthing words to a conversation only he can hear. Rebecca? I turn automatically, then freeze. Not my name. Not me. A tall man in his mid-30s approaches, wearing patient scrubs identical to mine. His eyes are clear, focused, unusual in this fog of medicated souls. Sorry, he corrects himself, voice dropping to a whisper. You're not Rebecca, are you? You're the new one. The one they're calling Abigail. My heart pounds against my ribs like something trying to escape. My name is Lauren. Lauren Taylor. His face pales. That's impossible. Why? He glances over his shoulder at the nurse's station where Diane watches us. Her expression unreadable. Because Lauren Taylor died 3 months ago. Car accident. Her obituary was in the Lancaster Tribune. His voice drops further. It's what they always do. The accidents are staged. Diane approaches. Smile fixed but eyes cold. Time for your medication, James. As she leads him away, he whispers urgently. Room 218C. Tonight, Dr. Mercer's office smells of leather and antiseptic. Degrees from Johns Hopkins and Yale hang on the wall behind his mahogany desk. A framed photo shows him shaking hands with the governor and the CEO of Palisade Pharmaceuticals. How are we feeling, Abigail? His voice carries the practiced concern of someone who's asked the same question thousands of times. My name is Lauren Taylor. I'm being held against my will. I want to make a phone call. I want to make a phone call, he sighs, opening a file folder on his desk. A rust-colored fingerprint stains the corner. Your delusions are persisting despite the medication. Concerning. They're not delusions. You have the wrong person. Abigail, he says, leaning forward. You suffered a severe psychotic break after your husband's suicide. You tried to convince everyone you were someone else. Someone who didn't have to feel the pain of David's death. My breath catches. I don't have a husband. Dr. Mercer slides a photograph across the desk. A woman who looks startlingly like me stands beside a handsome man on a beach. They're smiling. Happy. This is Abigail and David Landry. 3 months ago, David jumped from the Susquehanna River Bridge. You were there. You watched him fall. I pushed the photo away. That's not me. Your sister brought your belongings. He gestures to a box on the floor. Perhaps something in there will help reorient you. Inside, clothes I've never seen. A wallet containing Abigail Landry's driver's license with my face on it. A phone with a lock screen photo of the man from the beach picture. And a journal. When I open it, I recognize my own handwriting. Filling pages I have no memory of writing. As I flip through, a small newspaper clipping falls out. My obituary. Lauren Taylor, 32. Killed in a single vehicle accident on Route 30. The photo is mine. The life described is mine. This is impossible, I whisper. Dr. Mercer watches me with scientific fascination. The neural integration is proceeding more slowly than usual. Fascinating. That night, I slip out after bed check. The corridor stretches before me like a throat, long, dimly lit, with doors like teeth on either side. The squeak of my slippers against linoleum sounds impossibly loud. From behind closed doors I hear whimpering, mechanical beeping, and something worse. Wet, rhythmic sounds like brain matter being stirred. Room 218C smells of antiseptic and copper. James lies in bed, awake but restrained, head partly shaved, a fresh surgical wound curving from temple to ear. They're doing it again, he rasps. You're the third this year. Doing what? I whisper. Neural transference. They take damaged rich people, like Abigail, who went catatonic after her husband died, and map their consciousness onto compatible hosts. People no one will miss. People whose deaths can be faked. My blood turns to ice. Why? Because Senator Landry will pay anything to get his daughter back. Because Palisade Pharmaceuticals needs human trials for their consciousness uploading technology. His eyes dart to the door. Check the morgue. Basement level. You'll find yourself there. A whirring sound echoes through the hallway. The med cart. Someone coming. Burn it all down, James whispers. It's the only way. I find my way to the basement through an emergency stairwell with a broken alarm. The morgue door bears the Palisade logo alongside the hospital's. Corporate sponsors proudly displayed on the gates of hell. Inside, cold and silent, bodies wait in refrigerated drawers, each labeled with 2 names. I find mine. Taylor. L. Landry. A transfer in progress with trembling fingers. I pull the drawer open. Inside lies me, my face, my body. Pallid. Still. A Y incision carefully sutured on the chest, but the skull cap has been removed. The brain absent. A body to show any authorities who might come looking for Lauren Taylor. Bile rises in my throat. I slam the drawer shut and run. In the records room I find files documenting everything. Years of transfers. Wealthy patients whose consciousness is preserved while their bodies fail. Transferred into compatible hosts with similar neural architecture. The ultimate life extension technology. Immortality for those who can afford it, and a list of the next vessels. Hospital employees. Homeless individuals. People with no close family. That's when I see Dr. Mercer's private notes. Subject Lauren Taylor showing unusual resistance to integration. Abigail Landry's consciousness fragmenting rather than supplanting. Recommend increased suppression protocols before neural architecture is compromised. Governor remains enthusiastic about program expansion. His wife's Alzheimer's makes him an eager future client. The alarms begin to sound just as I'm photographing the documents with Abigail's phone. Diane appears in the doorway, a syringe in hand. Abigail, you're confused. Let me help you. I grab the metal trash can, dump the contents, and snatch a lighter from the desk. The files catch quickly. My name is Lauren Taylor, I say, backing away. Diane lunges. I swing the burning trash can, catching her square in the chest. She tumbles into a glass cabinet, shards exploding around her as the sprinklers activate. In the chaos that follows, alarms blaring, water spraying, smoke rising. I run. The delivery entrance is ahead, just as James described. Freedom waits beyond those doors. I crash through, gulping in cold night air, rain pelting my face. Real rain, not the artificial environment of Blackwood. The parking lot stretches before me. Freedom just yards away. Something sharp stings my shoulder. I reach back, fingers closing around a small dart. The world tilts. My legs forget how to work. Dr. Mercer's face appears above me, raindrops gathering on his glasses. "This is why we keep you sedated, Lauren," he says, using my real name for the first time. "Abigail's family paid $10 million for your neural architecture. We can't have both consciousnesses fighting for control." Darkness closes in from the edges of my vision. "Tomorrow's procedure will complete the integration." His voice follows me into the void. "Unfortunately, we'll need to extract James' consciousness as well. Can't have him interfering again." My last thought before unconsciousness takes me. I sent those photos to every contact in Abigail's phone. I wake up in a sunlit room. A man sits beside my bed. The man from the beach photo. He looks exhausted but hopeful. "Abby," he whispers, "do you recognize me?" I blink, confused. Two sets of memories war in my mind. Lauren Taylor, marketing executive. Abigail Landry, senator's daughter. "David," I say, the name feeling both foreign and familiar on my tongue. "But you're dead." I said D. His face crumples with relief and pain. "No, Abby. That was just a nightmare. You've been in a coma for months." Over his shoulder, I see a television. Breaking news. Scandal at Blackwood Psychiatric Center. Governor Dennis' involvement in illegal experiments. Something moves inside me. Some final fragment of Lauren Taylor, screaming to be heard. But Abigail's memories are stronger now. I am Abigail Landry. I always have been, haven't I? I never intended to uncover secrets. I just wanted a quiet job after Sarah died. My wife's cancer had eaten away everything. Our savings, our hope, our future. The medical bills were a nightmare landscape of impossible numbers. When the Oakwood State Psychiatric Archives offered me a part-time position organizing records, it felt like a lifeline. Minimum wage but consistent. Predictable. Something to keep the grief at bay. I didn't know then that some archives are graveyards for secrets that refuse to stay buried. The Oakwood archives smell like forgotten paper and industrial disinfectant. Rows of metal shelves stretch into shadows, housing decades of medical histories, patient records, institutional memories. My job is simple: maintain order, catalog, organize, preserve, but some files refuse to be contained. Patient #87 to 142. Margaret Wilson. Admitted June 14, 1987. Diagnosed with acute schizophrenia. Deceased November 3, 1987. Except the file keeps changing. My first week, I noticed something odd. The Wilson file would be exactly where I'd shelved it. Section G, third shelf from bottom. But when I pulled it, new documents would be tucked inside. Handwritten notes, dated current week. Same precise handwriting as the original 1987 intake forms. Observation. Patient continues to demonstrate extraordinary resilience. Dated last Tuesday. Margaret Wilson died in 1987. I thought about Sarah then. How medical records became the final narrative of a life. How easily a person could be reduced to paperwork. Diagnosed. Categorized. Forgotten. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the archive's senior administrator, dismissed my concerns. Old files get mixed up. Clerical errors happen, but her eyes didn't match her dismissive tone. Something flickered behind her professional mask. Recognition? Fear? Just refile it, she said quickly. Don't make a big deal. The file always found its way back. Always with new notes. Always dated recently. The most recent edition chilled me. Subject continues to maintain cognitive function despite prolonged isolation. Recommended continued observation. Signed by Dr. Marcus Henderson. The same signature from a 1987 progress note. Dr. Henderson had died in 1989. My hands trembled. Sarah's medical records were still fresh in my memory. Each notation a painful reminder of her slow disappearance. But these notes felt different. Alive. Alive. Why? Urgent. I started photographing the changes, documenting each new addition. The notes described medical observations, but something felt off. Clinical language describing something beyond medical understanding. Neurological pathways remain unexpectedly active. Cellular regeneration defies current scientific models. Subject demonstrates awareness beyond physiological constraints. What did that even mean? A memory flashed. Sarah in her final days, lucid moments between morphine doses. There's more, she'd whisper. More than they're telling us. The archive's basement levels are a labyrinth of temperature-controlled storage, rows of sealed metal containers, patient records dating back to the facility's founding in 1932. I found container 87, marked Wilson Margaret sealed. The seal looked undisturbed. Official state psychiatric facility stamp. Date, November 3rd, 1987. But when I ran my fingers along its edge, I felt something impossible. Warmth. Faint, but definitely warmth radiating from inside a container that should contain nothing but decades-old paperwork. My breath caught. Zara used to say the same thing, that death wasn't an ending, just a transformation. Suddenly, everything accelerated. A new note appeared in Margaret Wilson's file. Researcher becoming problematic. Recommend immediate intervention. My name was written at the bottom. That afternoon, I discovered something extraordinary. Margaret Wilson wasn't just a patient. She was part of a classified medical research program. Project Persistence, experimental treatments exploring the boundaries of human consciousness. Cellular regeneration, memory preservation. The file suggested they were studying something beyond traditional medical research, something that challenged fundamental understanding of life and death. The breakthrough came in a moment of pure, terrifying clarity. A sealed envelope. 2 photographs. First image. A woman strapped to a medical chair. Electrolytes attached to her temples. Eyes open. Aware. Second photograph, stapled behind the first. Same woman. Same chair. Dated last month. Exactly the same. Not a day older. My hands shook. Zara's voice echoed in my memory. Promise me you'll keep looking. Promise me you'll understand. Dr. Rodriguez caught me in her office. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Some secrets are better left undiscovered, she said softly. What happened to Margaret Wilson? She became something more than a patient, more than a person. A possibility. Before I could respond, 2 men in dark suits entered, their movements precise, calculated. We can't have you disrupting the project, Rodriguez continued. I saw the needle in one man's hand, understood what was coming. My last thought before darkness. Sarah would have wanted me to keep searching. I wake in a room that isn't a room, that isn't a room. Medical equipment surrounding me. Monitors tracking something. My brain activity? My existence? The date on the wall reads, November 3, 2023. Exactly 36 years after Margaret Wilson was supposed to have died. But I'm not Margaret Wilson. Was supposed to have died. I'm not anyone anymore. Just another file, waiting to be filed, waiting to be found. I'd never believed in ghosts, but places can hold memories, dark echoes of the past, lingering silently behind cracked plaster and rusted iron bars. That's exactly what drew me to the old Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum in Weston, West Virginia, on a chilly October evening, with the leaves dying and twisting on the trees. I joined one of those midnight, post-hunting tours. Purely for atmosphere, of course. I'd recently bought a new camera and wanted to capture moody, haunting images. Nothing more. The asylum had a grim history. Overcrowding, abuse, madness. People whispered stories of footsteps, shadows, whispers echoing through empty halls. Perfectly creepy. As I walked through the darkened corridors, our guide, a young woman named Sarah, described the horrific practices once used here. Her voice echoed gently through crumbling hallways, bouncing off peeling wallpaper and rusty doors. I snapped photos constantly. Shadowy staircases, abandoned wheelchairs, empty rooms with mold-streaked walls. Be careful what you capture, Sarah joked softly. Her voice hushed. Some say these halls never truly empty. I chuckled uneasily with the group. Flashing lights played tricks with the shadows. Occasionally, I glimpsed my reflection in cracked windows and felt an odd sensation, like I was being watched by something hidden, just beyond my sight. After the tour, I returned home, still chilled by the lingering atmosphere of the asylum. I sat in my small, warmly lit apartment, scrolling through the dozens of photos I'd taken. Each shot carried the perfect eerie gloom, but nothing unusual appeared, just darkness, decay, and emptiness. Then I paused on one particular image. It was a shot of a corridor, dimly lit, lined with barred windows. Outside the glass, darkness pressed inward. reflected by my camera flash. But in one pane of glass, something stood out, blurred yet distinct. A face. My breath hitched sharply. I zoomed closer, heart beginning to pound. There, hidden in the reflection, was the unmistakable face of a man. Hollow eyes, pale skin, scruffy beard. A face I'd recently seen splashed across local news bulletins. A wanted criminal named Dylan Reese, accused of brutally murdering 2 hikers in nearby woods. My hands trembled. Reese had vanished without a trace weeks ago, leaving law enforcement baffled. And now, here he was, in my photograph, clearly hiding inside the asylum, staring directly at me, alerted by my camera flash. He'd seen me. My chest tightened with sudden dread. Could he have recognized me, even briefly, through the flash? I studied the image again. His expression, though blurred, was unmistakably menacing. My pulse quickened, paranoia crawling beneath my skin. Shakily, I dialed 911, explaining everything breathlessly. He's inside the asylum. Dylan Reese, I swear it's him. Stay calm, the dispatcher assured me. Officers will check it out immediately. I hung up, but relief wouldn't come. My apartment, usually cozy, suddenly felt exposed. I triple-checked the locks, shut every curtain tight, but the unease persisted. Then my phone buzzed softly. A private number. Hesitantly, I answered. Did you get a good picture? A voice rasped through the receiver. Gruff, low, unmistakably menacing. My blood turned to ice. Who is this? He laughed quietly. You pointed that camera straight at me. You think I'd let you get away with that? My knees felt weak. Please, you ruined everything, he hissed, voice thick with rage. The asylum was perfect. No one would look there again. Now they're coming. Because of you. I forced my voice steady, heart racing wildly. They're coming now. Just turn yourself in. Another cold laugh echoed softly. Oh, I'm already gone. But I've seen your face, seen where you live. I'll be watching closely. You won't sleep soundly again. The line went dead. The line went dead. I stared helplessly at the phone, pulse roaring in my ears. That night, sleep was impossible. Every sound, a creak in the floorboards, a rustle of wind outside, seemed amplified, charged with sinister intent. Paranoia consumed me, whispering that Dylan Reese would appear at any moment, seeking revenge for destroying his refuge. Days passed uneasily. Police searched extensively, discovering Reese's hidden campsite, deep within the asylum, complete with stolen clothes, food wrappers, and bloody tools. But he was long gone, vanished into shadows, yet haunting me relentlessly. Weeks went by without incident. I'd almost begun to believe he'd moved on, until a package appeared mysteriously at my doorstep. It was a battered cardboard box, no address, no stamps, just my name scrawled messily in black marker. My breath caught painfully as I lifted the lid. Inside, buried beneath newspaper, lay dozens of photographs, printed from inside my own apartment. Me sleeping, cooking dinner, watching television, oblivious, and beneath them all, a single folded note. My fingers shook as I opened it. Now I've captured you. Fair trade. Cold terror flooded my veins. I called the police again, but even as they investigated, their reassurances rang hollow. Dylan Reese had become a phantom, always a step ahead, always hidden. The asylum had held horrors for years, but now it was my turn. I realized Reese was not just a killer. He thrived on fear, manipulating and tormenting his prey. He blamed me for disrupting his sanctuary, for turning the asylum from refuge into trap. A detective assigned to the case, a stern-faced man named Detective Carter, tried to reassure me. We'll find him, Carter said firmly. Men like Reese always slip up eventually, but eventually felt too far away. Then one bitterly cold evening, as snow drifted silently onto dark streets, my phone lit up again, number blocked. Hands shaking violently, I answered in silence. I'm close now, Reese whispered, voice calm, almost friendly, close enough to reach you anytime I want. Please, I pleaded hoarsely. What do you want? Peace, he murmured. You took mine away. Now I'll take yours. Watch carefully. I'm almost done. He hung up abruptly. Moments later, Blue and red lights flashed urgently outside my window, sirens howling into the night. Frantically, I threw open my front door, stumbling outside. Police cars crowded my street. Officers shouted orders, forming a perimeter around a nearby building. Detective Carter emerged quickly, expression grim. "What's happening?" I gasped. "We tracked a phone call he made," Carter said tersely. "He was here." My stomach clenched painfully. "Did you get him?" Carter sighed deeply, shaking his head. "Not yet. He slipped away again, but he left something behind." An officer approached, handing Carter a small envelope. Carter opened it cautiously, expression tightening. Then he passed it to me wordlessly. Inside, a single photograph. Dylan Reese smiling faintly, standing in the shadows of my apartment building entrance. Taken just minutes before the police arrived. On the back, hastily scribbled, a chilling promise. Smile. Next time, we'll take one together. My blood ran cold. Dylan Reese was still free, hidden in the darkness, watching, waiting, plotting his next move. I'd never believed in ghosts, but now I understood. True terror wasn't confined to abandoned asylums or shadowy hallways. Sometimes it followed you home, lurking patiently in shadows, whispering threats from darkened windows. And sometimes, the monster staring back at you from a photograph wasn't a ghost at all. It was real, and it wasn't finished. The basement of Willow Creek State Hospital stank, a sharp mix of mildew and rotting paper hanging thick in the damp air. I'd driven 3 hours to this desolate stretch of Ohio, chasing a tip about dark secrets buried here. I'm Alex Reed, a journalist who digs up stories people want forgotten. Above me, the hospital's crumbling brick walls loomed, its empty windows like hollow eyes. Down here, my flashlight sliced through the gloom, dust swirling in the beam as I scanned sagging shelves stuffed with moldy boxes. I pulled one free, heart kicking up a notch as the name Dr. Harlan Graves glared back at me in faded ink. The file snapped open with a brittle crack, revealing pages from the 1970s, long after such horrors were banned. The handwriting was cold, clinical. Subject 47, prefrontal incision, minimal sedation. Response violent, my stomach churned. Another entry. Subject 52, electroshock, 300 volts, sustained. Compliance achieved. Graves hadn't cared about laws, had sliced into people's minds like a twisted sculptor. Then I found it. A crumpled note tucked in the back, ink fresh and shaky. "They know you found this. Burn it." My breath caught. Who wrote this? When? The paper shook in my grip. A faint scritch broke the silence, like nails dragging on wood. I froze, swinging my flashlight toward the shadows. Nothing but the steady drip of water echoing in the walls. I grabbed another box and photos spilled out. Patients strapped down, faces blank, eyes lifeless. One stopped me cold. A woman, mid-40s, head shaved, wires trailing from her skull. I flipped it over. Evelyn Reed, 1978, my aunt. She'd vanished when I was a kid. A mystery Mom brushed off as her leaving. Now I knew she hadn't left. She'd been taken. Rage and grief clawed at my chest. The scritch returned, louder, nearer. My light swept the room. Empty shelves, but the air felt heavy, suffocating. A whisper slithered out of the dark. "Leave. Now." Goosebumps rippled up my arms. I stuffed the files into my bag and turned to run, boots scraping concrete. The whisper sharpened. "You'll end up like her." Evelyn's dead eyes flashed in my head, and I sprinted up the rickety stairs, the sound trailing me like a hunter. Upstairs, the hospital sprawled in ruin, peeling paint, broken glass crunching underfoot. I fumbled for my phone to call my editor. "It's huge experiments, my aunt." Static swallowed the line, then nothing. My battery dropped from 80% to 10% in seconds. A shadow stretched across the hall. Long, thin, impossible. My pulse hammered as I backed up, and then he appeared. Tall, gaunt, wrapped in a stained white coat. His eyes were black hollows, his grin a row of decayed teeth. "Dr. Graves is resting," he croaked, voice like grinding metal. "But his work lives, Graves is dead. I shot back. End of story. Dead? End of story. Dead? His laugh gurgled, wet and wrong. We evolve. He stepped closer, a syringe glinting in his skeletal hand. You'll evolve too, like Evelyn. I bolted, hallways blurring past, doors slamming behind me. His footsteps followed, slow, steady, relentless. I crashed into an old operating room, rusted table, straps hanging limp. My bag snagged, files scattering, and one photo slid out. Me, outside my apartment, taken 3 days ago. They'd been watching me. Terror turned my blood to ice. The door creaked open. I grabbed a scalpel from a tray. Dull, rusted, but solid. Back off, I growled, voice breaking. He lunged, syringe flashing, and I swung. The blade tore into his cheek, blood spraying dark and hot. He staggered and I shoved past, racing for the exit. Outside, sirens wailed, red and blue lights piercing the shattered windows. Cops stormed in, shouting, guns up, but he'd vanished, leaving only a smear of blood. The police recovered the files and photos, evidence of a cult. Graves' followers still active, still cutting. Evelyn's file was gone, lost in the chaos. The hospital search found nothing but whispers in the basement. I moved to a new city, locked myself behind steel doors. But last night my phone buzzed. No caller ID, just a hiss. We're waiting, Alex. I clutched the scalpel, breath fogging in the dark, knowing they're out there, knives ready, watching me still. The Eloise complex sprawled under the bruised Michigan twilight, like the corpse of some forgotten behemoth. I adjusted the pack on my shoulders, the familiar thrill mixing with something deeper today, a pull towards the history embedded in the decaying brick. My grandfather had worked here, briefly decades ago, as an orderly. His stories were fragmented, shadowed, hinting at things beyond just patient care, leaving me with an enduring fascination that transcended the usual Urbix curiosity. I wasn't here for ghosts. I was tracing echoes of a family connection, trying to reconcile the imposing structure with the hushed tones of his memories. Slipping through a gap in the chain-link fence felt less like trespassing and more like stepping into a half-remembered dream. Inside K-Beard administration, the air hung thick, dust, mold, time, peeling paint, rusted gurneys, the steady drip of unseen water, the hollow echo of my own footsteps. Passing a row of tall windows filled with grime, I remembered a childhood drive past this place, pressing my face to the car window, convinced the dark rectangles were eyes staring back. The feeling returned now, magnified tenfold. I navigated known sections, camera clicking softly, until I found it. The unusually secured wing, heavy steel doors, newer chains, robust padlocks, the strangely clean biohazard symbols. This wasn't just sealing off decay. It felt like sealing in a secret. My grandfather had mentioned off-limit areas. Was this one? The urge to know overrode my caution. I found the loose ventilation grate, squeezed through the rough scrape of metal on fabric, and dropped into darkness. The air hit like a fist, acrid, chemical, stinging my eyes, burning my throat. I fumbled my respirator on, but the fumes were thick, invasive. My flashlight cut through a visible haze, revealing rows of corroded barrels, weeping dark, oily fluid. The stench was nauseating. I leaned against a barrel, head swimming. I leaned against a barrel, head swimming. The fumes thickened, swirling, blackness. I came to with a gasp, the chemical taste thick as bile. Disoriented, head pounding. How long out? Seconds? Minutes? Panic sighted me as my eyes focused on the stained concrete inches from my face. Clear, fresh boot prints, larger than mine, leading away. Someone had walked right past me while I was unconscious. I scrambled behind barrels, heart hammering painfully. I heard them then, heavy, booted footsteps echoing, methodical, searching, muffled voices, low, professional. Peeking through a gap, I saw the two guards, tactical gear, powerful flashlights slicing the haze. They moved with purpose, checking barrels, not typical security. They were guarding this toxic horde. One paused near the grate I'd used, muttering into a shoulder mic. Their search pattern tightened. Fear warred with dizziness. I needed out. I spotted another chained steel door at the far end, light underneath. I moved silently towards it. Reaching the door, I pulled at the heavy chain. It clanked with a sharp metallic report. There, a barked command. Flashlight beams pinned me. Footsteps pounded towards me. No more stealth. I threw my shoulder against the steel door. Again. Metal shrieked. The hinge tore loose. I kicked the lock, bursting through into a dusty corridor, the deafening clang echoing behind me. I ran, gasping, hearing the guards enter the corridor shouting. Through decaying wards up crumbling stairs, their lights and radio crackles relentlessly closing in. I burst onto an old ward, moonlight stark through broken windows. Another door across the room. Outside. I sprinted. A heavy hand clamped my shoulder, spinning me. The first guard, face grim, flashlight blinding me. The second moved to block the exit, raising a taser, its low electric hum filling the air. I shoved, kicked, fought with frantic desperation. The guard grunted, grip tightening. The taser moved closer, trapped. Then the first guard shone his light directly into my face, studying me intently. He frowned, lowered the light slightly, and muttered to his partner, clearly audible, "Nah, wrong guy, wrong guy." Before I could process it, the distant rising and falling wail of sirens pierced the night, growing louder. Both guards froze, heads snapping up. They exchanged a look. The one holding me cursed, roughly shoved me away against the wall. "Move, now!" he snapped to his partner. They didn't spare me another glance, turning and sprinting back into the asylum's dark maze, footsteps fading rapidly. I scrambled to the door, stumbling outside into the cold night air. I ran until I reached the fence, collapsing near the road as police cruisers swarmed the main entrance. I flagged one down, pouring out my story. The waste, the guards, the bizarre wrong guy comment. They listened, noted my irritated skin. They investigated, finding the disturbed grate, the broken door. But days later, when Hazmat finally entered the sealed section, it was empty. Cleaned out. No barrels, just stained concrete, and the lingering smell. The guards vanished. I was left with the faint chemical burns, the memory of near suffocation, and the chilling echo of wrong guy. I had stumbled into something far bigger than illegal dumping. Eloise held secrets far darker than its decaying facade suggested. Secrets powerful people were willing to use force, and perhaps deadly precision, to protect. I had seen behind the curtain, and the knowledge was its own kind of poison. My sister's letters arrived weekly from Willowbrook until the fire. They call it hydrotherapy, she'd written in her last note, but it feels like drowning. When the state shut the asylum down, Lila's records burned with it. 20 years later, Greystone's ruins called to me like a grave demanding flowers. The air inside Greystone's abandoned Kirkbride building smelled like mildew and forgotten suffering. My flashlight beam cut through dust motes swirling in October sunlight as I stepped over collapsed ceiling tiles, camera clicking compulsively. 3 recorders ran in my pockets, always recording, always documenting. Lila's voice lived in static now. Maybe other lost voices lingered here. Footsteps echoed from a parallel corridor. Not the cautious shuffle of urban explorers, but something purposeful. Heavy boots on cracked linoleum. "Hello?" My voice bounced off water-stained walls. Silence. Then, a metallic screech like bed springs protesting. The treatment room froze my blood. Rusted immersion tub. Surgical tools arranged too neatly. Bone saw. Trephination drill. Mouth gag. And on the drill handle, fresh blood still glistening. My thumb found the recorder's pause button out of habit. Lila's last words played in my head. They said I'd thank them later. He appeared in the doorway, striped pajamas hung loose on his gaunt frame. Eyes sunken yet alert. One hand clutched a leather-bound journal. The other, a syringe with a needle long enough to puncture bone. "Early for your lobotomy, Miss Porter," he said, tilting his head. Ice shot through my veins. Porter was Lila's maiden name. The chase blurred corridors into a nightmare funhouse. He herded me toward the hydrotherapy wing, whistling Quisera, Sierra. I ducked into an office labeled Dr. L. Ferguson, barricading the door with a filing cabinet. The desk drawer held Polaroids, teenagers in restraints, historians strapped to gurneys, all dated this year. Beneath them, a journal entry. Subject 23 exhibits familial resistance patterns. Sister's conditioning incomplete. Requires deeper neural reworking. A photo slid free. Lila, 1982. Strapped to a chair. Ferguson beside her, syringe in hand. My recorder captured the whimper I couldn't contain. He found me at dawn in the morgue. Compliance requires reinforcement. Ferguson intoned, advancing with leather straps. I swung a rusted autopsy saw. It bit into his forearm. No blood. No blood, just fibers, like cutting into an old mattress. He laughed, a dry, crackling sound. Remarkable resilience. Your sister fought too, briefly. The hospital TV flickered last night. Ferguson stood in static, syringe glinting. Observation is the first step to understanding. His eyes locked on mine through the screen. You've been observing, haven't you? Now I sit in Lila's old room. My recorders run constantly. The journal lies open. My handwriting now mingling with Ferguson's. They'll come soon. The curious, the grieving, the ones who think they're documenting history. I'll be ready. Treatment requires preparation. Always recording. Always studying. Always studying. Always becoming. The box arrived on a Tuesday. Plain cardboard, addressed to me in black Sharpie. No return address. I just moved to Seattle after my parents' funeral. A car accident that left me with a hefty inheritance and more questions than answers. Their Victorian house on Queen Anne Hill still smelled like Mom's lavender sachets and Dad's pipe tobacco. Inside the box, a leather-bound journal, its cover cracked with age. A yellow post-it note stuck to the front read simply, "This belongs to you." I should have closed it, should have burned it, should have done anything except read it. But I did read it, and that's when everything unraveled. The journal's first page held a Polaroid. Faded, but unmistakable. A young woman, maybe 20, with my exact face. My distinctive widow's peak, the small scar bisecting my right eyebrow from a childhood fall. Even the hazel eyes with that unusual amber fleck in the left iris. Except I'd never been photographed in a hospital gown, sitting in a sterile room with barred windows. The date stamp read, April 17, 1993. I was born in 1993. In April, the handwriting beneath it matched mine perfectly. Day 1 at Evergreen Psychiatric. They say I'll be here until I'm better. Whatever that means. My fingers trembled as I turned the page. Day 14. Dr. Whitcomb says my delusion about having a twin is just another symptom. But I remember her. I remember holding her hand when we were little. Where is she now? I've never had a twin. I'd know if I had a twin, wouldn't I? Day 30. The medication makes my thoughts fuzzy. I keep forgetting things. Important things. Yesterday I couldn't remember my parents' names. Today I can't remember what our house looked like. The handwriting grew increasingly shaky as the entries continued. Desperate. Frantic. Day 45. They showed me pictures today of people they say are my family. A man and woman I've never seen. They insist these strangers are my parents. When I argued, Dr. Whitcomb doubled my dosage. Something cold crawled up my spine. The people described in the entries that followed matched my parents exactly. The next morning, I called Evergreen Psychiatric Hospital. I'm researching my family history. I lied to the receptionist. I believe a relative was treated there in the early 90s. Is there someone I could speak with about patient records? Those would be sealed? She replied automatically. But our Historical Society volunteer might be able to help. Mrs. Holloway comes in Thursdays. 2 days later, I sat across from Edith Holloway, a retired nurse with wire-rimmed glasses and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Most records from the 90s were digitized, then destroyed, she explained, fingers flying across an ancient keyboard. Privacy regulations. What about a patient admitted in April 1993? Female, would have been around 20. Her typing stopped. Something flickered across her face. Recognition? Fear? What was the name? She asked carefully. I realized I didn't know. The journal never mentioned the patient's name. I'm not sure. She would have looked like this. I slid my driver's license across the desk. Mrs. Holloway's face drained of color. Where did you get this? It's my license. No, she pushed back from the computer. This is impossible. The door opened. A man in a white coat entered, his face professionally pleasant. Mrs. Holloway, you're needed in records. She stood, gathering her things with shaking hands. "I'm sorry, I can't help you," she murmured, not meeting my eyes. As she left, the man lingered. "I'm Dr. Richards. Is there something I can help with?" "Just researching family history." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Be careful digging into the past. Sometimes what's buried should stay that way." That night, I found a Polaroid slipped under my front door. A hospital hallway. A door marked restricted wing. Today's newspaper visible in the corner of the frame. On the back, written in that handwriting so identical to mine, "The truth is still here." Breaking into a psychiatric hospital at 2 a.m. wasn't part of my life plan. Yet there I was, using the employee entrance code I'd memorized during my visit, heart thundering against my ribs. The restricted wings door required a keycard, but the maintenance access beside it was secured with a simple padlock. The bolt cutters I'd brought made quick work of it. Beyond, a corridor of dust and shadows, abandoned patient rooms, medical equipment draped in sheets like waiting ghosts. Room 17 looked like the others. Empty bed frame, stripped mattress, walls painted institutional green. But when I shined my flashlight along the baseboards, I spotted it. A loose panel. Behind it, a metal box. Inside that, files, dozens of them, and photographs. Girls and young women who all looked impossibly like me. Different names, different admission dates. All diagnosed with the same delusion, believing they had a twin. All treated by Dr. Eliza Whitcomb. The most recent file had my name on it. My actual name. With admission forms dated next week. A ceiling light snapped on. "You're early for your appointment," said a voice behind me. Dr. Richards stood in the doorway, holding a syringe. "We weren't expecting you until Monday. What is this?" My voice sounded distant, strange. Project Echo. Dr. Whitcomb's life's work. He stepped closer. She discovered a way to duplicate consciousness, transfer it. The perfect subjects were identical twins. One to serve as the control, one to modify. I don't have a twin, but even as I said it, fractured memories surfaced. Holding someone's hand, a mirrored face, laughter. "You're right, you don't." His smile widened. "You are the twin, the copy, the echo. That's impossible. The journal was bait. We needed you back for the final phase. My parents, your handlers, paid to maintain the illusion. Paid to maintain the illusion." I backed against the wall, mind reeling. Where is she? The original. Where all the originals go, waiting to be reunited, to be made whole again. The needle flashed as he lunged. I woke strapped to a hospital bed, head pounding. A woman in a lab coat checked my vitals. Behind her stood a girl, maybe 20, with my face. My widow's peak, my scar, my eyes. But somehow, not me. Something clinical in her gaze. Cold, calculating. "The integration was successful," the doctor said to her. "How do you feel, Emily?" The girl who looked like me smiled with my mouth. "Complete," she said with my voice. "Finally complete." The doctor turned to me. "And you? Any lingering sense of identity?" I opened my mouth to scream, to protest, but different words emerged. Calm, detached. Echo patient 17 has been successfully suppressed. Integration complete. But inside, buried deep where they couldn't reach, a small voice still screamed. Still remembered. Still knew the truth. The journal now sits in another box, heading to another house, another twin, another echo, and the cycle continues. Somewhere in Washington, a young woman will open a package. Inside, a leather-bound journal with her own face staring back from its pages. And the doctors wait, ready to make another patient whole. The voice inside me grows weaker every day, but I'm still here, still watching, through eyes that are mine but aren't mine anymore, still wondering which one of us was ever real to begin with. You made it out. At least, that's what they want you to believe. Which patient followed you home? Let us know below. And if you're still thinking about room 218, you're already infected. This is dark, real horror. Subscribe, and come back next week. We're opening another door, and the next name on the file might be yours.